G'day. So you're wondering how to win a war American style. First things first, you need to have a big army, preferably bigger than your opponents. You may be wondering, why do you need a bigger army than your opponent? Well, it's very simple. Bigger army equals better army. So you see, America, they often attack poorer nations, smaller nations. No use fighting a nation that you know you're going to lose to. For example, why do you think the Cold War was a Cold War filled with proxy wars? One, nuclear weapons, which means you can't attack countries with nuclear weapons. And two, a full-scale war with Russia would be costly. So instead, they decided to have proxy wars. You can see in Korea, what happened was North Korea started winning the war. And then started winning even more. And more. And more. So, America, because the UN is an American puppet, pretty much. Why do you think the headquarters are in New York, America? Yeah, you didn't think about that. Had managed to get Russia to boycott by selecting some rebels from China as sitting members of the UN for China and stacking in UK and France, which are minor powers. Why not have countries like Brazil and India? Because they aren't American puppets. You see, America has enough control over over France, over UK. Well, so maybe at the end of the war you could argue that France and UK should have been in the UN or whatever. But then they lost their African colonies. Then they became weaker and weaker to the point where if America tells them to jump off a bridge, they'll jump off a bridge. So you've got 1, 2, 3 people in the UN Security Council who are under American rule. So stack the deck. Step 1. Step 2. Get the people who you've stacked to go along with you. So in this case, the UN, quote unquote, decided to stop North Korea because North Korea was bad, according to the UN. So they invade North Korea, having several bombing runs of Step 3, civilian targets. Civilian targets are easy. What do you think would be easier to destroy? 100 soldiers or 1,000 civilians? Okay. So this may seem like war crimes. That's because it should be, but because it's so effective, it's not a war crime. Especially if you win like America. So, for example, if you look in North Korea, there's only one city with traditional Korean architecture. Guess what city that is? The only city to change hands in the Korean War. Yep. It was originally in the south, so the UN did not bomb it. Yeah. Because, as I mentioned, it's not worth bombing South Koreans, but North Koreans, they're communists, so they need to be eliminated. So that is step 5. Step 4. Keep your allies close and your enemies non-existent. So if you want to be a winner war, you want lots of allies but no enemies. So America, believe it or not, is willing to chip in a few favours for allies. Allies which have a large effect on American voting. Because Anyone who controls anything to do with your ability to win an election is an ally. For example, Israel. There's quite a bit of Jews and quite a bit of evangelicals in America. So, anything bad happens to Israel, that's going to make them upset. But if America helps out Israel, then all of a sudden, that's a voting base. So, guess what? The Islamic Republic of Iran is a big bad boogeyman who's trying to develop nuclear weapons. It's simple. It's because American special interest country, Israel, wants Iran to be the big bad guy. Because Iran has power over the Middle East. In fact, if you look at the Middle East, who do you think the major powers are going to be? The big bad Iran, supposedly. Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey. Well, the powers are Israel and Iran. It's not Turkey and Saudi Arabia. It's Israel and Iran. And as we know, Israel is run by an American. So you want to make sure that your forces are discreet and everyone thinks that the other people are evil, because that's the end of step 4. Step 5, make sure no one knows what's actually going on. Why do you think the wars in the Middle East have lasted so long? If America wanted to, they could send over their entire army and take over the country with brute force. But because the American military contractors won't get profit over a war ending in 5 years, what they need to sell is large amounts of weapons and stuff over the course of 20 years. That's why Afghanistan has been going on for 20 years. It's so it doesn't break major headlines, because the Americans don't want war. They want peace. So if you want to win a war, you got to make sure your people don't know about it. Because if you want to win a war, you want to have the will, the political power to start that war in the first place. So if you have any disagreements, please respectfully leave that in the comments. And you should probably like this video, and if you like this video, you should probably subscribe. So that is all.